in America. And we had a couple arrested in Mexico that was resolved by a Michigan congressman. So he's going to tell us what led to his development. That. Welcome, John, and from God's country in Bozeman, Montana.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Kimberly.
Okay, and as we said, we have Jonathan from Vacation Ownership Advisor, my personal consignee team for My Resort Co-op, for those who want an alternative to the perpetual timeshare contract. My agreement is for 3 years. And then we have, I learned that these three guys know each other. Yeah. So yes. You'll remember, Kim, Mike from Koala. My husband and I have booked through Koala. If you want to pay someone else's maintenance fees and not sign any contract except one-time booking, you can sign up with Koala. And we're going to begin today with the end. So I'm introducing last Andrew, and his wife reached out to me just last Wednesday, and I get this private Facebook message. I was told that I should reach out to you about Wyndham, and that Wyndham is violating the Military Lending Act. Now, that's a very loaded statement because it's the subject in the courts right now. Blue Green was the first to be sued, accused of violating the Military Lending Act. The second was Westgate, and then Wyndham and Holiday Inn. In Steins versus Westgate, the lower court ruled that a timeshare loan is not a mortgage loan. And the judge at the lower court, Judge Dalton, ended the session. I was there saying, when I check out of a timeshare, I can't leave my underwear and toothpaste. And so Westgate appealed. Our very first guest on this show was Taya. Taya went with me to the appellate court. She's in the Army, and they lost at the appellate court. But the problem is, you would think, between the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, Fannie Mae states on their website a timeshare loan is not a mortgage loan, and the National Credit Union Administration and CUA state on their website a timeshare loan is not a home mortgage loan. So you would think that would be the end of it, but only Westgate, I believe. I do know for a fact that all the other developers are stating either that we don't agree or our loans are exempt from the Military Lending Act. Okay, now, Andrew, I've learned a lot about the military from talking to over 300 veterans and active duty service members over the years, probably up to 500 by now. And you learned from me that when a Wyndham sales agent promised a 6% interest rate, you had to have a high interest rate loan with the Service Members Civil Relief Act before entering the military. And then the lender's required to reduce it. Okay, so your dilemma is that your first purchase, we didn't hear any deception, and I'm sure we're going to get a lively discussion from Jonathan, Mike, and John about what is this animal that you signed up for anyway. But what disturbed me the most was what happened at the upgrade. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up and the disaster it turned into.
Okay. I'll start at the end, since that's where we kind of left off. So the most recent vacation my wife and I took, we took our 3 kids down to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. We stayed at one of the Wyndham hotels down there. I have a 6-year-old and 3-year-old twins, boy-girl twins, so 3 kids total. We get down to Orlando and we go to check in, and as soon as we check in, my wife comes back to the car. I'm staying with the kids. She comes back and says, "Hey, we have to go to some meeting with Wyndham." And I was like, "Well, we're here for a vacation. What do we need to meet with them about? Like, we already have a contract." And she says that she was told by the lady that she checked in with at the Wyndham Hotel that we either attend this meeting or if we don't, they're just going to increase our property fees, and all of our payments are just going to go up if we don't attend this meeting. So we took a look at our schedule over the next 4 days. We ended on just taking this meeting the last day right before we leave, because they told us it was only going to take 45 minutes. So we get all of our stuff out of the room. We get everybody packed up in the car. Again, I'm waiting with my children in the car. And 3 hours later, my wife comes out from a meeting that was only supposed to take 45 minutes. And she proceeds to tell me that she just spent another $1,700 to upgrade from 84,000 points to 200,000 points because the salesman said it's going to lower our price. And I was like, well, how are more points going to lower our price? And she said, well, they're going to give us 6% interest rate because we're service members. We have a year to call them to activate the 6% interest rate. Traveling home, I mean, that drive was a 6.5-hour drive. I didn't look at the contract until we got home. And as soon as I looked at it, I said, we need to call them and cancel this because the loan terms were actually for like a 16 or 18% interest rate, and the payments were going to be $650 a month. And apparently they didn't tell her any of that during this 3-hour meeting that they had. And the way that they disguise these loans are, your numbers aren't up front in the paperwork. You got to go digging for them. I was already off put at the beginning of the vacation by them bullying my wife into attending this meeting. And I was, as soon as I saw the paperwork, I said, I'm not paying this. I don't care what they say. They're either going to cancel it or they're just not going to get paid. And that's kind of how we ended things with Wyndham so far.
And how many years have you served with the Air Force, and how many years your wife?
I have been active duty for 15.5 years, and my wife has been in for 11.
Okay, so the problem is you rescinded, so there's no complaint there, but you still have the prior one. And one of the reasons we have Jonathan on the show with us is one option is to make the best of it. Are you just so disgusted you're still prepared to default and risk your security clearances? Or is there any way we can make the best of it?
I mean, for me personally, like we've talked about already, I have no problem not paying them. Like I said, when she told me she was bullied when she went in there. All I can say is Wyndham is lucky that I wasn't the one going to check in, because you're not going to bully me. I will cause a scene in the middle of the hotel. I don't care. I'm here on a vacation. I'm trying to take care of my family. I'm trying to show my kids a good time. You were not about to strong arm me into your little, their little deal they had going on there. So yeah, I was pretty upset. I don't have any issues paying I don't have any issues not paying. But what I don't want to do is destroy my wife's career, because she still has almost half of it left in the military.
Well, and what I have been advised is that you go to JAG and you talk to them before you default. And I will provide the links to the lawsuits and the statements saying that it is not a mortgage. And we were talking a little bit before the show with Jonathan, Mike, and John. So let's start with Mike, because I know you agree with me that you don't think a timeshare loan should be considered a home mortgage loan, which is exempt from the Military Lending Act.
First of all, Andrew, I'm sorry. That's not a great experience, obviously. And, we'll unpack a lot of that and kind of get into that and how I feel about some of the tactics that are used. But first I'll say that whether or not I feel or not feel that that's a mortgage, I don't know. This is all semantics, right? What I do know is that there are no salespeople that should be presenting this, any timeshare ownership, as something that is refinanceable in an easy capacity, particularly at those sorts of interest rates. Does not exist. And so if there's some sort of semantic argument about what is the legal definition of a mortgage or a mortgage loan, that's between the clubs and whomever. What I'm saying is there's a high likelihood that salesperson, assuming that everything that Andrew just said is actually what happened, which I'm assuming it is, because I've obviously heard this a million times, but again, I wasn't there. Any salesperson knows that they're not supposed to be presenting that as any sort of refinancing option, right? We've been in this game long enough to know that there are certain ways you can and cannot refinance a timeshare. And typically there's no bank, as far as I know, there's no bank that's going to just take that and refinance it. I'm not too familiar with the VA laws, but like I'm fairly confident that that's not.
It's not VA. That's the veterans. This
Okay.
is the Service Members Civil Relief Act for active duty service members. Before they enter service, they have to have the high interest rate loan. And our first guest, as I said, she settled with Wyndham. She was eligible for it, but we had Valerie on the show who spent 26 years, I think, with the Air Force National Guard, and she's in default, told about the 6%. Yeah. And Jonathan, do you have anything to add on this before we're going to have Andrew kind of listen in if he can stay with us the whole hour. And then the reason Andrew's on today is they're changing bases. So normally I would have scheduled him on a later Monday, but I really wanted, and I said, hey, this is sort of a bonanza that you get 3 industry experts here with us to listen and support you in this. So, Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
I mean, what you went through, Andrew, is not, should never happen to anybody. And, you know, every time that we're on this show and I hear different experiences of when clients say this was said or that was said, for those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we know that, and I'd say this generally in the heart of hearts, I could say that Andrew didn't just create the story, right? The story lines up with certain things that are said at certain times during a presentation, right? So I don't think he just read a blog and just turned around and said, oh, wow, this is exactly what happened to me. I believe what your wife said to you about rising maintenance fees and payments will go up. I believe that was probably a true statement. That's what was said as using a scare tactic to get you to go into the presentation, which is horrible. It should be shut down immediately by whoever is her supervisor, because obviously that supervisor knows about it. And we always talk about this, how high does it go up the food chain? But obviously there's other people that know about that, and it's probably not the first time it was used. Talking about the loan, you should never be presenting different opportunities for that. If the client is not comfortable moving forward based on the terms and conditions of exactly how, you know, the purchase needs to be, you shouldn't be presenting other options that, one, you're not an expert in to even talk about, and 2, that are just not, they're not feasible. They're not feasible. And this is why I was talking to you before, is that even if it's like a brand new sales rep, maybe they heard something. This sales rep could have heard something on the floor, the way it's presented, and other people are presenting that, and that's where he got the idea from. And then he went ahead and said that, or he was really under the impression that it was wrong, and he just said it and used it, which is absolutely wrong. And I feel bad that you went through this situation, because it puts such a bad mark on an industry that truly isn't built around on that. And I have more that I'll discuss on that, about how I feel about those individuals and where the regulations should go. But we'll leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, I just
oh, go ahead, Mike.
And I just say, like, look, the timeshare industry is, and the timeshare product to any new buyer, it's already confusing just in terms of how it's utilized. But like, there was always a very clear distinction between, you know, talking about points and like booking vacations and maybe like how easy or hard it might have been to grab that particular piece of inventory versus like financial incentive to like, that's a clear bound. Like, nobody is supposed to cross that. And that is like very clear on day one when you're training. Like, this is not a financial investment. You're not going to make money. You're not going to resell this at a higher value, and certainly should not be talking about any sort of financing or refinancing options unless that's something that's offered through the company and your credit score has been checked against that tier. Like, it's just so binary and wrong, right? That, like, I don't believe there's any room for, any room for discussion as to like whether or not this person knew they were wrong or right. Like, they clearly, if they were saying that, like, they had to have, in my opinion, had to have known that was not offered or not something they should at least be talking about, at very least.
Correct.
I will just say that.
And I've been making snarky comments because Wyndham calls the department Wyndham Cares, but we had 2 instances where Wyndham did care. And so we've had.
I will say, like, Wyndham would not, that's not something Wyndham would if they knew that that person was saying, again, like I think the question Jonathan said is like, well, how far does this go up the food chain? Like that's an argument, but like if the heads of Wyndham like actually heard them saying that, like they would be terminated immediately. Like if that's exactly how they said it and what they said, like that's just not acceptable. So like I don't believe that that is something that's allowable. These people are finding this gray area to communicate to owners in, or to prospects in, and that's how they're operating and that's how they're selling, and that's where it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it would never be a part of any type of sales training or anything that's ever provided as information to a sales rep or trained upon in a morning meeting or anything. That information would be something he had listened to or sat around and talked to an individual who is pitching what they call heat, is pitching something that is unethical, and they're watching that salesman sell, and he's telling them, oh, you could do this and say this, and it's, this area. But Wyndham itself, I could say for Marriott, I could say for Hilton, these companies that I have worked for, and I know for a fact that if that situation was aware at a high enough level, it would be immediate. There would be into HR terminated.
That's a clear SEC violation. You're not talking.
Yeah, you're
talking
like
about
that.
financing options that are, you're not qualified or licensed to be discussing that as a salesperson. So even if they didn't quote know they were wrong, which they did, we shouldn't be talking about it. It's just
during discovery with Archambault versus Wyndham, it was discovered there was one agent that had 30 complaints, 142, 157, and they were not terminated. But on a positive note, we had 5 resolutions of people being able to work with their developers and resolve their dispute. 2 were Wyndham. 1 was a prior guest on our show, and the other was a Marine stationed at the Pentagon. So in half the people, pretty close to half the people have paid third parties for no reason when it could be resolved by yourself. Okay, so we're going to pretend like the show is just starting right now. And our guest today.
Go back in time.
I'd like to ask something, Andrew. The every presentation I've been to, spouse was required to be at the presentation. The fact that they let your wife walk out of there purchasing something without you being in there, to me doesn't sound like they're following their own rules.
They must have put her.
Did they come and get you at some point to sign documents?
No, well, actually, I take that back. They did send me like a DocuSign in my email, but the paperwork that she walked out of just had her name on it. My name was nowhere on any of those documents. And listening to Mike talk earlier, it's wild you say that, because the presentation that we were given when we initially signed up for this timeshare was that you can build equity in it, and if you pay it off, we bought it for $18,000. You can sell it after you're done paying it off and get your money back, your $18,000 plus some if the economy is coming up. They've treated it just like an equity.
Those are weak salespeople. They're not even salespeople. I would just call them con artists.
Yeah. So I think with Jonathan and Andrew, that's like, you're absolutely right. Like it does not exist like that in the same.
Right.
That does not work in the market the way stocks do. And anyone that tries to conflate those things or interpret those things like that is completely, off their rocker. And to Jonathan's point, these are not really they're not really selling the product. The fundamental problem, I believe, with this entire product is, as timeshare industry problem is that you have what I believe is a decent product, like a good product. Other clubs may be better than others, but you have a points-based system and people can use it to take decent vacations. Like that's it at its core, right? The problem is no one wants to buy it because of its reputation. And because no one wants to buy it, you have salespeople that have to get their numbers and they have to make sure that they're closing deals to a product that no one wants to buy. And so how do they fill that gap? Well, the weak ones fill it with BS, and the better ones build rapport, and they say, here are the good and the bad of what this product can do, and here's where it may be great for your family, and here's where it's going to be problematic or maybe not really fit the needs of your family. So, here's how you avoid those pitfalls, and here's how you use it. And that's how any good salesperson would present this product. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's something that if you know how to use it, it can be great. If you know what you're buying, it could be awesome. If you don't know what you're getting into, it's problematic. And certainly if you're buying it for some of those financial gains, it's a disaster. And so like when you're dealing with those reputational issues and these publicly traded companies have to hit these billions of dollars in sales, you're going to run into these problems when you have so much friction at the sales table. And so the industry needs to think about what it's doing to make this product more accessible and more desirable to the end user for the next generation, right? So Andrew's a young guy, he's a young family. This is not the boomer generation of the old school timeshare owners. These are younger people, they're tech savvy. Like they should not be confronting this. They should be into this product and wanting to buy this and take a nice vacation, not be bombarded with these sales tactics.
Yeah, but I was 45 when I bought. So, you know, the young people buying today are going to be old people like me, you know, 20 years from now, going through what all these old people are going through.
But the people today have different needs than when, you know, when the people back then were buying that inventory. So like everything has to evolve. And I don't believe that at least the sales process seems to not be evolving right with the times. It's just, it's absurd to me. Anyway,
and if just one quick comment, what we're talking about, and I always say, where does it land, right? Because if one thing that I feel is that in the industry itself, and Mike's right on point, is that it's not evolving, right? We as industry professionals and leaders in the industry, we know that there's an issue with, I won't call them sales, or we'll call them people that are misrepresenting the product, which are then harmfully impacting people's lives. And in my personal opinion, I feel that industries and organizations like TARDA, right, that have these groups where you have Marriott, you have Hilton, you have Wyndham, you have all these that are a part of an organization with regulations. This is where it starts. So as an example, if we know XYZ salesperson is pitching something that is wrong, right? And then it goes up the ladder. That person gets terminated from a certain company. Let's say that person gets terminated from Wyndham. 30 days or 60 days later, that person will be most likely hired by another one of those big brands. And they will continue. In my personal opinion, just like if you fly for Delta and you commit something against the FAA regulations, you are not banned from Delta, you're banned from flying. And I think we need to take it a different level, and these individuals need to be banned from the industry. And we need to start cleaning it up, because we know that there's, on the sales floor, the director of sales, I can promise you the director of sales knows exactly what's going on that sales floor. Absolutely. He knows if a sales rep is writing X amount of business, the VLO knows exactly what's going on in there. Now, does it go up to the RVP, to the regional? Probably stops in somewhere in that area. Does it get up to a regional director? Probably not, because they're not involved in sales. But it is on the sales floor, and I can promise you the director of sales knows what's going on, especially if he's been there for more than 30 days. Right? It's just, you need to cut it out.
I mean, that presents a bigger question. It's like, if all of this was kind of engineered out, like all of these salespeople that were unfortunately not being truthful in the presentations, if all of that was engineered out, would people be buying timeshares? And that is the question. I think the product in and of itself is good, but there's so much stigma around the purchasing process.
Correct.
That it really prevents a lot of any of the good to get through to the final user. And so the question is, if they engineered all of that out, all of those people that said X, Y, and Z to get you to that presentation, X, Y, and Z to get you to commit to the timeshare, how many people would be buying timeshares? Because again, they've evolved the product to be better, but I don't believe they've evolved the sales process to be any better. Certainly not the marketing. The exit companies do a much better job at marketing than the sales.
That's correct.
Sales organizations do.
So based on that positive experience, let's go ahead and switch to timeshare wire fraud.
Yes, great segue. The
John,
timeshare scam hotline.
You had
Andrew, this is like your dream.
And don't forget to tell us about your business identity being stolen. That was amazing. That prompted you to take this on. Other question is, I went through all 193 entries, and there were some duplicates. And my question: were they intentional, or are they different entities on there?
It could be more of a tech issue, just upgrading the system to add in more of the known scams. But let's start at the beginning. The timeshare scam hotline started because some scammer out of Florida was pretending to be an employee of mine working at a remote office. So I got a call saying I sent the green dot money card I picked up at Walgreens to your address in South Florida, and now I can't get a hold of your agent. And I go, we don't have an agent down there. And so started looking into that, contacting the local authorities, but we added a little blurb to our website just saying, if you're contacted by someone claiming to work for us at a remote office, please note that's a scam. And then we'd start getting calls from people saying, this is the transaction I'm going through. Is it legitimate? And so everything from, I got a call from someone claiming to have a buyer or renter for my timeshare, calls from people who just sat through presentations at the resorts and purchased and weren't comfortable. Basically, we set it up if you're going through any timeshare transaction, whatever it may be. If you don't feel comfortable with it, reach out to us, free consultation. The majority of the calls we receive now are the scams perpetuated by the Mexican cartels. So 95% of the phone calls I get are, I got a call from XYZ company out of somewhere in a big city, USA, claiming to have a buyer for my timeshare. Is this legitimate? And within, a couple questions, is your timeshare listed for sale anywhere? If the answer is no, you should not be receiving a call with a buyer or renter for your timeshare. And did they offer you more than what you paid for your timeshare? If both of those answers are yes, I can tell you it's 100% of the time it's a scam. And the scammers used to, those big scams perpetuated by the cartels used to just go after owners of Mexican timeshares. However, they've widened their reach, so to speak. I got a call from one of the scammers because I own timeshares. The product's great if you use it, like Mike said. And so I got a call from the scammers who sent me an email. This is just last week. They asked me what I owned, and I gave them the name of the resort, the Alara by Hilton in Las Vegas. And I said it was a 2-bedroom worth 13,440 points. And within about 5 minutes, I got a proposal offer to purchase it from me for $78,000.
Wait a minute. I think I can go ahead and,
What an ROI.
I have one right on my phone here. I can play. Oh, I didn't mean to call him.
Uh-oh. Oh, God.
Get them on. Yeah, that'd be fun.
That would be great.
Please don't call cartels on this. Thanks.
Irene Parker, I was reaching out to you regarding the wholesale takeover targeting Hilton Grand Vacation and the opportunity that you have to receive an offer for your contract. If you have any questions or doubts on how this can affect you or benefit you, please give me a call back at 312-428-4412. 312-428-4412.
Yeah.
Yep,
You get
that's
those
one.
all the time then too. Yeah. I get at least one a day.
What did you have to pay,
what-
John, for that? What was the money up front that they asked you to get the 78 for?
We haven't got there yet. So I'm still, maybe not after this today, but what they do is a lot of the time they'll find a company that is legitimate and pretend to be them. For example, they'll let's just go with simplebooking.com, whether that's a real site or not, I don't know. But simplebooking.com, let's say it is a legitimate site. What they'll do is they'll get simplebookingmexico.com. And so they'll create a website that looks like it. You look up simplebooking.com. You go, oh, this is a legitimate website. This is a legitimate company that does these type of things. And then they'll find companies in the U.S. who have gone out of business, and they'll file paperwork with the state to renew that business license. So you if you do your research, you go, oh, this company's been in business for 20 years. If you look into the documents, oh, this company was in business for 12 years and then has been out of business for 5 years, and somebody renewed the paperwork showing them to be at a different location. I've seen them present or steal the identities of attorneys. So they'll pretend to be an attorney. The most recent one I spoke with was out of California. The attorney was in-house counsel for Netflix. So he didn't practice commercially. So the scammers created a whole website around his law office, pretending to be him. I called him and said, do you know there's people using your identity to scam timeshare owners? And he goes, yeah, I have to show up in court this week because someone from across the country is suing me. So I have to show up in court to explain that I'm not this, person who's scamming you. They're very good at what they do.
I noticed on your website, Connor and Connor, I received a complaint from someone that's the same thing. They're imitating a legitimate law firm.
Yeah, it happens. So my list of known scams, I have to be careful of what I put on there, because the last thing I want is to put someone who's a legitimate company not scamming people. So I have to be very careful. The list of almost 200, I probably have another 150 to go through just to verify everything. So I'm not going to just put, people will often call and say, I want you to add this company to your list of known scams. And I go, send me all the information you have from them so I can do the verification in order to add them up there. And I will often get, well, I don't want to share any of my information. I just want other people to know. And I'm not going to put something up there that I'm not fully 100% convinced it's a scam. And again, if they're using companies that are similar to, or using names that are similar to other companies, the last thing I want to do is put someone on blast that is not a scam, that is legitimate. So the majority of the calls I said are about being scammed, asking for money to be sent, wired. The small number of calls we get from someone who has sat through a presentation and purchased, like Andrew's story, unfortunately, I don't have as good a help or as good a options as what I've sent to you, Irene. When I get those calls and I go, okay, this isn't something I can help you with, but you should speak with Irene. She's been awesome at helping people in the same situation. And I know a handful of people I've sent your way. You've taken real good care of them. So I want to thank you again.
Well, and it's our team, because if it's Vacation Village, it goes to Sherida. If it's Club Explorer, it goes to Sheila. And we did have someone reach out that was disputing, and I said, where did you hear about timeshare specialists and John Cushman? And she says, well, I don't know if I should tell you that. Like, why not? It was the FBI.
Yeah.
So she contacted the FBI and they referred her to your timeshare hotline.
Yeah, we get a lot of referrals from local sheriffs or state law enforcement, as well as the elder abuse hotline. But yeah, the FBI is aware of the information I've compiled. Really, the only information that's provided by the scammers that is legitimate is typically the wiring information that they provide to have you wire the money to Mexico, right? The unfortunate part, there's people in on the scams at the resorts, people in on the scams at the local branches of the banks, and the local police forces. And the reason I know that is I got a call from one of the scammers, a call from a gentleman who worked at a scam for all of a day and a half before his conscience got the better of him. And he called me and said, the first day I show up, there's employees from the local resorts. That's, how they're getting the information. Employees from the local banks. They need someone there to let them know when the money's been wired. And then the local police force are there to notify the scammers when the federal police force is coming down on them. I think the DOJ is the one that put out that press release about $350 million have been wired from American citizens to one cartel in the last couple of years just in timeshare. That's how much money they're making off it. And they're all located across the border. You know, they claim to be in the United States. They're not. So
And at least
What's that
amount of
number
money is-
again? That 350 million?
350 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure, based on the people I've heard from, that there's 350 million in domestic exit company scams. Not all are deceptive, but there's been a litany of them for a long, long time. I had a Canadian bank call me when the seniors came in and they're going to wire money to the Dominican Republic. I contacted the Jacksonville, Florida Secret Service when a veteran fell for this, and they were said someone called impersonating a federal agent, saying that they were going to come and arrest them for being part of the money they had wired because it was fraudulent. So you have to wire it again.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh my gosh. But one question I want to ask outside of wire fraud, and Jonathan, last week, I saved this question for near the end because I think we're all going to explode. You mentioned it's best not to buy resale. And Mike, I've introduced you to Judy Kozlowski at Remax, who's worked 30 years in Hilton resale. So she was responding to that. And I think part of the problem is, can you imagine our primary residences? If we no longer had a secondary market for our homes, what would happen? So I feel, and since you worked at resale, as I understand it from Judy, that you can't transfer and same with Marriott, buying resale versus wholesale. Diamond Resorts, if I buy 20,000 points from you, now Hilton US collection points now, I have to buy 10,000 directly from Diamond or Hilton to clean those points to be able to join the club to book. So Vacation Village, Tahiti Village, Soleil Management, Great Eastern, they will not allow a release under any circumstance except DM management with Vacation Village if you have documented medical hardship, and then they charge $1,500. So I'm of the belief that, yes, and many times there's not the restrictions for buying or outweigh buying wholesale. I mean, buying on the resale market versus buying directly from the developer. And since John Cushman works in timeshare transfers and resales, and you use the word on your website, guarantee, which to me is a red flag, but you explained that Great Eastern and Tahiti Village, you're guaranteeing because you have relationships with the developers that you work with. Is that right?
Yeah, I guarantee to get you out of a timeshare that I know I can find someone who's willing to take it over, continue using it, and pay the maintenance fees. If it's an ownership, my guarantee, because I don't charge any fees up front, is I'll sell your ownership, get it out of your name before your next maintenance fees are due. That's my guarantee. If it's a resort I can't offer that guarantee on, then I let the client know, look, I can offer you the same service without the guarantee, meaning I'll advertise it out there just like you can to get someone who's willing to take it. That if I can't offer the guaranteed service on that particular ownership, I don't. But the service I provide is the same way I go about finding new owners for the stuff I do guarantee. I just don't guarantee that I'll get it out of your name before the next maintenance fees are due. I do have relationships with some resorts. One of the first things we ask people who call us is, have you checked with your resort to see if they're willing to take it back from you? Because oftentimes that's the cheapest route out, even if your resort is charging a fee to do so. And oftentimes we'll get the answer of, yes, they're not doing that. And my response is typically, did you ask them if they'll buy it back? Or did you ask them if they'll take it back? Because those are two different things.
Right.
Most resorts will not buy it back from you directly. They may have what's called right of first refusal, where they can exercise their right to purchase at the same terms that a buyer is, but they won't make you an offer without a buyer making an offer first through the right of first refusal process. But yeah, the way I get people out of timeshares is by finding new owners. There are plenty of resorts that, because they haven't been in active sales for years, there's no new people learning about, no new people sitting through a presentation and going, I like the idea, I don't like the price, I'm going to go look on the secondary market. When a resort stops having active sales, that pool of potential buyers dries up pretty quickly. So what we're left with is the pool of buyers, which is someone who already owns there and wants an additional week or additional time, additional points, or someone who exchanges into it and goes, I love this resort, I want to come back here year after year, let's go see if we can get it on the secondary market. But for a resort that, and to take it a step further, a club who stops selling or sells something different, for example, there's a resort in Cancun, I'm going to draw a blank on the name, but in the course of like 8 years, they had 3 different sales companies come in and sell essentially 3 different ownership types, membership types. And so I'd get calls from people saying, I own at this resort, something sunset. I go, okay, when did you purchase? Because if it was 10 years ago, there's nobody looking for your ownership anymore. And that's, when I get those calls, it's unfortunate that I don't have an option for those people other than let's try to work with your resort to see what they can do as far as helping you out. So I offer a service of just writing a letter saying, I'm not an attorney. Your owner has reached out to me. This letter is just opening up the dialogue to see if the resort has any option for helping your owner get out of this product that is no longer working for them. And I've had good response from the resorts. You know, I've been doing this for 17 years, 18 years. And the resorts, a lot of them are wising up to the fact that if they don't help out their owners, they may not be a resort much longer. The legacy resorts, you know, the big
Well, and
brands.
that's what's leading to repurposing that my resort Cola that Jonathan is involved with Volca, where either part or all of a resort are being converted to whole use condos as they become sinking ships with rising delinquencies. So if I was Vacation Village, Tahiti Village, Soleil Management, or Club Exploria that offers no responsible exit, and I called you, John, and say, could I list my timeshare with you, which I did with Diamond, and I called Magical Realty in 2016. We will accept a listing for any timeshare except Diamond Points. I was like, whoa. So if would you accept listings for those 3 developers that I mentioned?
Absolutely.
Or,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. There's no reason not to, in my opinion. You know, for the service I provide, you know, advertising, but the conversation with that client is going to be, you know, I haven't been able to give away one of these in, you know, 6-8 months, or I haven't even tried for 2 years on certain resorts. But that turning someone away, the reason I don't is because I know the options out there are probably not good for them if they get to, you know, certain places where they're charged a large upfront fee to advertise their ownership at a unrealistic price on the secondary market. You know, those.
And then we also have Red Week and Tug for sale by owner, but for the same reason that I don't like the idea of selling my own house, I'd prefer, if I had to sell a timeshare, to go through a licensed broker, because one of the problems with the scams too is if you list on a public listing site, and these listing sites like Sell My Timeshare Now and Timeshares Only, our board president was told, sure, we'll charge you $650 for a listing, and you should list your Club Exploria for $8,000 to $11,000. if it's a 2-bedroom at Summer Bay, what would you suggest May week, what would you suggest I list my unit for?
Less than $100.
Exactly. So this is how I got, when I heard that in 2016, I emailed every member of the aptly named Licensed Timeshare Resale Broker Association. And I got back, half the people that responded said, if we say anything negative, we'll get sued out of business. But Tom Tubbs, who, his daughter now, Jessica, has taken over his business in Oklahoma. He said, what you sell turns into a different product. Now, I have said, and this is so informative, not just for our viewers, but for me, if somebody wants to buy a timeshare, I suggest that you consider Marriott or Hilton to buying a deed. Now, we have the benefit of having both Mike and Jonathan, who no longer work for Hilton, but can you know the product well enough? What do you give up? Because I asked Judy, she said, you don't have to just stay at your home resort if you buy on resale. And Mike, how do you feel about buying resale versus buying directly from the developer?
I mean, I bought a Hilton resale and I worked for the company, and I think that there are benefits to either. Again, I don't like telling people what they should do with their own money. I think it's important that people understand the differences and understand what buying at retail will provide for you versus buying on resale. And there certainly are benefits to buy at retail. Like those benefits typically are baked within elite statuses. And if people have the money to do it, the discretionary funds to buy retail because they want to get diamond status for life with Hilton, then they should do that. But where I think it gets murky again is that salespeople are telling them inaccurate information potentially to get them to not buy resale. And that's where this gets very, very tricky, right? So like you can buy resale and you can use your points, at least with Hilton, at least at this time, with any other club in the system. I don't know too much about like how that intersects with their new
HGV Max,
like Blue Green or HGV Max or anything like that. Like I don't really have access to that stuff, but I have access to all of the HGV properties, and I bought resale. And so I think that, again, knowing all of those things is really where these customers need to be empowered. These potential buyers need to be empowered. I know a lot of people that have bought both. They bought enough retail to get to certain elite tiers, and then they've kind of filled in the gaps with resale. I think that's a great strategy. Like, again, people just need to know these things.
Right.
There's plenty of reasons to want to do both. There are plenty of people that have discretionary income to do whatever they want. Great. Go nuts. Have fun. But again, falsifying information about what resale does or does not do, it comes down to, again, the sales process. It comes down to not evolving that process. And of course, making sure that that is going to evolve and that is going to be more transparent as we move forward. Because there's certainly a lot of murkiness going on, I can tell you that.
And while we have you on here, next week I'm going to do a present. We didn't have time this week, but with your website, so people know who you are and how to find you. So you were with Koala, and what's new with Koala? Last time we had you on the show, there was a tier program. Sherida has booked through Koala, and so she wrote an article about that. How is that working out? Is there anything new we don't know about?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. I mean, the membership tiers we launched for memberships for timeshare owners, because there are what we recognize is that timeshare owners have so many different knowledge points in their product. Like, how are you going to get someone to rent their timeshare when they don't even understand what they own? And how far down that rabbit hole do we need to go to get them to understand what they own and what their product is, and then how to monetize that product? So those memberships allow us to unlock some different products and features and customer service levels that will engage more with them, that will increase their success chance. We have different products like Concierge. We have products where we kind of do all the management for them. We have products like the Hub, where we have this is for points owners, for people that don't want to make reservations, that just go in and kind of fulfill bookings with points. So it's going quite well, and it's predominantly because you have so many different types of timeshare owners through the process. And And of course, you have these timeshare owners that know exactly what they're doing, like John Cushman. He knows exactly how to price, exactly what to get, exactly what weeks are going to sell. And for people like that, the free listing funnel is the way to go. But there are people that like, I don't want to touch this, then they're going to need or want kind of a higher end membership that's going to take care of that for them. So
And
that's
then
one.
Diamond points in their club rules say you cannot rent points to anyone you don't know, and you can't use a third-party platform. And Blue Green has suspended hundreds of accounts, and some of them in no way were commercial activity. That's another reason why I recommend people buy from Hilton or Marriott, because Marriott has a restriction. This was to curtail the mega renters that were making all kind of money and getting millions and millions of points. But Marriott, their new restriction is that you can only receive 20,000 points from someone else. But at least they allow renting, you know?
They
And
do.
if you buy a Hilton deed, we own at Maui Hill since 1984, but last year none of us could use it. And you helped my daughter. I mean, just to not see that $1,300 go out the window and be able, she was even able to make a couple of $100 on that. And besides, we donated the week. We were on our way there in 2013 in August when they had the fires. But Jonathan, Vacation Ownership Advisor is such an important cog in the wheel here. And I'm not a John Cushman. When I was asked where I wanted to go, I was like, I'm not sure. So I threw some things out, and now I've got to throw some other things out, and give us some pointers if when you're wanting to book a trip, how far out do you have to be? One thing good about Diamond Resorts, I'm still a Diamond Report member, is if you book 60 days or less, you only use half your points. So I'm used to booking within 60 days, but then other people are saying, well, they're requiring me to book a year out, which for military people, I've been told that you don't know when you're going to get deployed. That's a problem. So give us a few pointers about how to use your services, Jonathan.
What we're looking to do is to bridge the gap and the disconnect in the vacation ownership industry, whether it's a travel club or a timeshare. We understand that it can be complicated to someone who hasn't been involved in it for years and years. And even those of us that have been working in it for years and years, it's constantly evolving. So we understand and recognize that there is a gap from when you purchase throughout the year, how to actually make a proper exchange. When your maintenance fee comes in, and you might have a maintenance fee of $600, maybe $5,000. And our job is to turn that into a positive. Because if you really understand the benefits that you have with inside of your level and where to use your points in certain situations and where it might be better to use cash, then you're going to feel better about those fees. You're going to feel better about your ownership. And ultimately, that's what we're here at VOA to do, is to work with the developer alongside, and also, most importantly, work with the client on a proactive level to help them truly understand their ownership and help them maximize the benefits that they have.
And before we run out of time, Andrew, because of my age, but you don't have to be older, someone who's been in the industry for 43 years, Joe Takis, and his wife and his daughter Sydney's now taken over. I signed up for My Resort Co-op. It's a 3-year program. I paid $1,200 the first year, $900 the second, $900 the third, and then I'm done. And the first year is 48,000 RCI points. So I have the lowest level. There's 3 tiers. And so talk to your wife and see. I'd like a few people to go through My Resort Co-op on the buddy period. If you have 100% decided you're going to default, you're like a lot of people that either default or they resolve their dispute and get it canceled, but they still want to travel. And especially age is a factor. If you do your timeshare math and you're 70 years old and you're signing off on a $100,000 timeshare contract, you better calculate your life expectancy on that upfront money that you're paying for that vacation club or plan. So we have now 2 minutes left. does anybody have any closing comments they'd like to make before Kim wraps us up here?
I'd like to say thanks for everything you do, Irene, and your team. It's a breath of fresh air in this industry. I know we're on whatever episode 68, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for again just what you do and bringing us together. I do believe that it helps a lot of people. So keep it up.
Oh, thank you so much, and I'll forward that to we have 10 board members now, and I never thought when I encountered this that it would mushroom, but we've heard from 318 families since January 1. So 2 more this morning, Great Eastern, they won't take it back no matter what. And now I can tell them, John, will you accept a listing for Great Eastern?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll tell it. And that way, at least if it's a year from now and they're still stuck, they can say, when they say, find a buyer, you can say, I tried. And I'd like, go ahead, Kim.
Right, we're at the top of the hour. This was like, I'm getting deeper and deeper with you guys. So I hope everyone joins us next week at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Pod TV. We are sometimes running on TikTok. They can't believe that this is our original content. I think they think I stole it. But anyway, yeah. So, but you know what? We have to unite in order to be able to make things right. Sometimes it's just too complex for a lot of people listening to about the wire fraud. But I've got some stories to share with you guys and some recordings that I have made of people actually trying to convince me to sell them my points, but I have to pay them $8,000 to buy them. I kid you not. This guy pushed and pushed. But last week, I met a woman who received a phone call from a Wyndham agent saying that they wanted to rent out her RCI points, which she was like, what? So there's a lot of scams. This gets exposure out there to people. And you know what? Everyone right now in these uncertain times, don't buy until you've read that contract or had your lawyer read it first, because that lawyer is cheaper than the one you have to pay to get you out of a bad contract. So remember that. To stop the agent from selling you, say, give me the contract and I'll go get my own lawyer and read it.
Availability is not part of the contract, so reading it doesn't help.
I'll tell you.
That's true. I mean, there is a lot of misrepresentation of the contract and oral representation, but absolutely. But next week, we're going to do some follow-ups to these stories.
This could be a 3-hour show.
Do what?
Yeah,
I know. This is a great show. We don't even want to end it now. Take care.
They should come on the show. And you made a great point about asking someone else on this. Come on the show if you have a question about it, because there's no better person to talk to than someone like Mike Kennedy, myself, John Cushman, people that we've been on the tables, sat on thousands of tables, and we understand what is a yes, what is a no, what is gray, what is not. We would be glad to help any of those owners that have a question.
Prevent the fire. And I agree with you. You know what? We have not done that yet. So that's a future show. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.